The climb was pretty intense. We keep climbing higher and higher. The climb gets steeper and steeper. Now, the air on Mount Everest is 1/3 of the oxygen that you and I are breathing here. So my pace was 1 step for 3 breaths. I thought, man, there's no way I'm gonna make it up to the summit. This is too slow. This is ridiculous. I'm taking these steps, and I get to a spot where I cannot take my leg out of the ice. I look down, they're not stuck on anything. What's going on? Why can't I move my foot? Nuru, he's a local to Nepal, comes over to me, and he takes his mitt off, and he knocks twice on my oxygen canister on my back. Normally, it would make a noise like thunk, thunk, showing that there was oxygen in it, that it was full. He goes, ping, ping, and he says, "Sir, very bad news. You have no air. Maybe we go back, maybe you die." And I said, "Not that one." He says, "Oh, more air up high." And what he was saying was that previously in the expedition, there had been oxygen bottles that were stashed up higher in case of emergency. He could go get one, and I would stay in place. So he disappears off into the Himalayan black sky. There's not a feeling of loneliness in the world like sitting in the middle of the Himalayan mountains with no one around you at night. I'm looking down at that red suit that I put on, and it starts to turn gray and then almost black. And I realized what's happening was my brain was shutting down. I was actively dying because of the lack of oxygen. Remembering my hero, Sir Edmund Hillary, who said, "It's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves." Conquer yourself, John. Conquer yourself, John. Finally, I see this light coming down towards me. And I'm like, "Please be Nuru, please be Nuru." And he says, "John, sir, I have air." And I'm like, "Yes." And he takes this oxygen bottle off of the regulator, the old one. He takes the new one, screws it in. I take a breath. And as soon as I do, my suit turns from gray to red again. Whoa, my foot pops right out. We start walking. He says, "Ready to climb?" I say, "Yeah, ready to climb. Let's do this." Absolutely. So I start taking these steps, one after the other, 3 breaths, 1 step. Conquer yourself, John. Conquer yourself, John. So I see this pyramid shadow in the distance. That shadow is Mount Everest being cast dozens of miles into the distance. And that's when I realized that I was there. I was standing on top of the world, on top of Mount Everest. I'm here now, not to brag about myself or tell my own mountaineering stories. If you leave here and think all that guy did was tell his climbing stories, you've missed the point. This is about you, because every person should have his or her own Everest. See, in life, bad things happen. There are challenges, but do not have a case of excuse-itis where you have this disease that things are too hard, too difficult, or that you're not good enough for whatever reason. The mountains will never lower themselves to your level, but you must rise up to the demands presented to you by the climb. The problems of the world are not going to get easier. You must rise up, bring out that leader within, and rise up to the demands presented to you by the climb. The greatest leaders of all time have come from the times of greatest turmoil. The greater the problem, the greater the opportunity for leaders like you to step up. We are a generation that is disciplined. We are a generation that is productive. We are a generation that is fighting to fix the mess that was given to us. We are a generation that believes that this planet will not move forward unless we embrace kindness, compassion, and respect for all of life. It is a choice that you will make whether or not you will let that leader out. Will you?
A week before I was due to deliver that speech tonight, they said, "You've got cancer." They said, "If you don't get any treatment within the next 3 weeks, you're going to die." And then they told me that I wouldn't be here tonight to deliver that speech. But luckily, that speech isn't about what's to come. It's about what an amazing year it's been. And you didn't really expect me to write a whole other speech from my hospital bed, did you? So it started like this. If I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Bernard of Chartres compared us to dwarves perched on the shoulders of giants. He pointed out that we see more and further than our predecessors, not because we have keener vision, nor greater height, but because we are lifted up and borne upon their gigantic stature and knowledge. My middle name is Ross. I was given it not long before I was born, because my great-uncle Ross, he drowned in Sri Lanka. Mr. Ross Bailey was a Christchurch-based kidney transplant surgeon. He was known for making a serious difference to an extraordinary number of people's lives, back when organ transplants were an amazing feat. And all humility aside, he was the best in the world at it. He came from a working class background, the only one of his siblings to go to university. And he went on to save numerous lives because he could. Because he sought higher things. He dared to make a difference. Now, we can't all save lives by transplanting organs, but we can make a difference in our own way. I want to share with you all some words which I hold particularly close to my heart. Words which meant a lot more to me this year than they ever could before. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there is not effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deed, who knows the great enthusiasm, the great devotion, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. So that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls that know neither victory nor defeat. But we can't be the best at everything, or even times at anything. What we can choose to have is moral strength. I wrote about this before I knew I had cancer, and now I have a whole new spin on it. Moral strength is about making a conscious decision to be a person who doesn't give up when it would be easy to. To be lesser because the journey is less arduous. Jim Rohn said, "Let others live small lives, but not you. Let others argue over small things, but not you. Let others cry over small hurts, but not you. Let others leave their future in someone else's hands, but not you." Of course, doing this will mean at some point you'll have to face your fear of falling short, a fear of looking like a fool, a fear of not being enough. And being senior monitor meant facing these fears every day. But here's the thing, none of us get out of life alive. So be gallant, be great, be gracious, and be grateful for the opportunities that you have. The opportunity to learn from the men who have walked before you and those who walk beside you. My challenge to each of you and to myself is to continue to grow and to develop for the better. The future is truly in our hands. Forget about long-term dreams. Let's be passionately dedicated to the pursuit of short-term goals. Micro-ambitious. Work with passion and pride on what is in front of us. We don't know where we might end up or when it might end up. I don't know where it goes from here for any of us. For me, for you, wherever we go and whatever we do, may we always be friends when we meet again. Aotea Piro.
This was the first time I'd seen my dad cry in my life. It was May of 2010. working my summer job as a lifeguard, living at home with my parents. And this day happened to be just one of those days where it seemed like everything was going wrong. One thing after another, piling up, the stress just building. And I knew the second I walked in the door, because I was driving home, it was all just gonna evaporate. I'd come in, I'd say, hey mom, I'd give her a hug. Dad be in the living room, in his chair. Hey Bri, how was your day? Go give him a hug. And when dinner time rolled around, we'd get up, we'd fill our plates with food, we'd go into the living room and do one of our favorite things together, which was watch a movie. The stress is evaporating and I'm in one of my happy places. And at one point, my dad went up to check on my grandfather who was taking a shower. He'd been living with us for about 10 years at that point. He was 83 now, so he needed a little more help getting around. So about a minute after Dad got up, we're sitting there, peace, silence, and serenity. And all of that shattered in an instant. Before I knew it, I'd grabbed the cordless phone and I was running up the stairs. I turned into the bathroom, and when I got in, I saw he had pulled his father's naked, still dripping wet body into his lap and was holding him. My grandfather's arms were draped back, his head was back, his mouth was open. And when all the emotions were rising, it was like my mind split down the middle. There were only two choices I had at that time, and I knew no matter which of those two I chose, my life was going to change forever. I knew that in that moment I had a choice between action and inaction. Have you ever been at a time in your life where it was so crystal clear that you had two choices? For you, it might not have been a life-threatening emergency. For you, it might have been that moment when you finally said, I'm done and I'm walking out. You said, I'm leaving this job. I'm not staying in this unhealthy relationship. When you finally decided to say, I love you and I'm ready for this. When you finally decided to look in the mirror for yourself and say, today is the day and we're doing it. That day, I decided to take action. So I said, Dad, we need to get him flat. Mom, here's the phone, call 911, tell them where we are, tell them what happened. We lift my grandfather's still dripping wet body naked out and lay him flat on the ground. I know I need to check his vitals, so I come down. I put my head by his mouth to listen and feel for breathing. I'm looking down the plane of his chest to see if his chest is rising and falling and rising and falling. And then I take my two fingers to his carotid artery to feel for a heartbeat. And as I'm doing my vital check, I'm down there. There's no breath. There's no movement in his chest. But there was the slightest little heartbeat still pumping. So I got down and started giving rescue breaths. I'm down there, my body is shaking. It feels like I can't keep going, but I know this is all I can do until someone else, an EMT, a doctor gets here. I have to keep going, but my arms are shaking, my legs are shaking, and I'm gonna keep doing it the best I can until I collapse. And then finally, after what felt like 30 or 40 minutes, I was tapped on the shoulder and the EMT is there. I tried to save a man's life that day. But as the head EMT came downstairs and explained that he had had a massive heart attack, he had likely died instantaneously, and that the heartbeats that I'd felt were nothing more than an echo or an aftershock. It felt like I failed. I hadn't saved anybody. Until later that night, when my dad looked at me and he said, Brian, if you hadn't been there, I wouldn't have known what to do. And for the rest of my life, I would have doubted that if I'd only known what to do, that my dad would still be alive today. Because you were here and you acted and you didn't hesitate, I know it was his time, and I can let him go in peace. Sometimes you'll save exactly who you intend to. Sometimes someone you didn't even see or didn't expect will benefit from your efforts. And sometimes the person you save will be yourself. And I learned one of the most important lessons I've ever learned. You never know whose life you might save by choosing to act.
Became clear something was not quite right with me. I fell over, and had great difficulty getting up again. My mother realized something was wrong and took me to the doctor. I spent weeks in Bart's hospital and had many tests. They never actually told me what was wrong, but I guessed enough to know it was pretty bad. In fact, the doctor who diagnosed me washed his hands of me, and I never saw him again. He felt that there was nothing that could be done. At first I became depressed. I seemed to be getting worse pretty rapidly. There didn't seem any point working on my PhD, because I didn't know if I would live long enough to finish it. I had come to Cambridge to do cosmology, and cosmology I was determined to do. Then the condition developed more slowly, and I began to make progress in my work. After my expectations had been reduced to zero, every new day became a bonus, and I began to appreciate everything I did have. And there was also a young woman called Jane, whom I had met at a party. Getting engaged lifted my spirits, and I realized, while there's life, there is hope. There are many ambitious experiments planned for the future. We will map the positions of billions of galaxies, and we will better understand our place in the universe. But we must also continue to go into space for the future of humanity. I don't think we will survive another 1,000 years without escaping beyond our fragile planet. It has been a glorious time to be alive, doing research in theoretical physics. The fact that we humans, who are ourselves mere collections of fundamental particles of nature, have been able to come this close to an understanding of the laws governing us and our universe is a great triumph, and I'm happy if I have made a small contribution. I want to share my excitement and enthusiasm about this quest, so remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Try to make sense of what you see and wonder about what makes the universe exist. Be curious. And however difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't just give up. While there's life, there is hope.
My wife and I suffered 3 weeks of turmoil, which included losing a child. How do I expedite that moment when we pick up ourselves? Basically, how to push through.
So the pain that's going to come, it's going to come in waves. At first, you won't even notice that they're waves because all the waves are going to be so close together, it's going to feel like you are drowning in sorrow. You're not going to get any air, and like you're not going to be able to escape that sadness. That's what the waves feel like at first. And then at some point, there's going to be a little break, just a little break, just a little bit of light in the darkness. Something is going to make you smile. Something is going to make you laugh. Something's going to just show you just a little bit of light. And then another wave of pain is going to come back again, and it's going to be strong, and you won't have any control over it. All of a sudden, you're going to be just crying uncontrollably. You won't be able to say, no, I'm in the light now, or I'm smiling right now. I'm not gonna go back there. No, you're not going to be able to control it, and that's scary. You're at the mercy of this ocean of sorrow. But don't let that scare you. Don't let that scare you, because I'm telling you that that wave is going to subside again, and this is going to go on. It's going to go on, and the waves, they will become weaker. And what you need to realize is just because the waves are becoming weaker, this doesn't mean that you love your child less, or you miss them less, or that you aren't crushed at their passing. It just means that you're starting to be able to deal with it, which is what you're supposed to do. When you feel a little bit of a break, what you can do is you can row the boat. You can row the boat. And what I mean by that is start doing something productive to get your mind moving forward. Let's sort out the drawers in the bedroom. Let's vacuum. Let's do something productive. If there's something that distracts you, that's fine. Do it. Let there be some calm in the water. As the calm calms, also you're going to find moments where it's like you can have things that are going to bring on the waves. And that's okay too. Bring on the waves. Go look at the pictures. Write down the memories. Read the letters. Read the notes. Read the emails. Remember. And then there's that standard service. You're going to do the memorial. You're going to do the burial. And when that's over, let a little bit of more time go by. Give yourself another week of washing around, of feeling that sorrow, of letting the waves toss you around in the ocean. But after another week, what you do is you go and you write a letter. You write a letter to your child and you explain to them. Explain to them how much they meant to you. Explain to them how heartbroken you are that they are gone, and then explain to them why you are going to carry on. And explain to them how in losing them, you have learned without a shred of doubt how truly precious life is. And that they have taught you the immeasurable value of your own life and your family's life. And explain to them that you know that they loved you, and that you know that they would want more than anything for you to be happy and productive and impactful in the world. And explain in that letter what you will do to make them proud of how you live your life. And then take that letter and go to their grave and read it to them. And cry and kiss their soul. And tell them that you'll see them on the other side. And then go live your life. And those waves are still going to come. And there's still going to be pain. And there's still going to be sorrow. But you go and live your life. Live it well. And make